to welcome everyone. As you come in, check out my new shirt. Don't forget to like. As you come onto the video, just smash that like button so we can get that out of the way. Why am I posting this video, and why should you take a good look at it? Why should you ask for a free copy, which I'll gladly send you, right? It's because this is the state of California representing your rights, highlighting everything that Uber and Lyft are doing wrong, right? And this law just doesn't apply for California only. This is pretty much universal. Whether you're in Arizona, Florida, the legal argument is the same. What I do with a lot of lawsuits, right, and this is where I really rattle the attorneys. I look at lawsuits that have been won or won on appeal. I usually strip the entire verbiage down and I change it a bit and I file it in my name. It's called in pro persona, right? By doing that, I probably save myself a good $10,000, $15,000 sometimes, right? And what I do then is I start moving into discovery. So what I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that this document, it's very, very long. And yes, I'm going to go through it line by line. You can check out anytime you wish. I completely understand if you check out because it's a lot of legal verbiage. And if you rather want a free copy, no problem. Hey, Rideshare Professor, I want a free copy. I put my email, my personal email, in the subject line, in the title line, because I will send you a copy, right? I have sent people business plans. I have sent people free editorial press release contacts, venture capitalists, and I share my stuff. I don't have to be greedy. I've used it 20 times over. If you want a copy of anything, you come to me, I send you a free copy, period, right? That's how I roll. So this lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen, this was filed in the Superior Court of the State of California, County of San Francisco, unlimited jurisdiction. Obviously, I'm gonna not really go through all the parties, the jurisdictions, the venue, all of that stuff, right? That's all boring. We're gonna jump straight into the juice of this case. This case is you. This is your case. No matter whether you're in Florida, whether you are in New Mexico, whether you're in the Carolinas, whether you're in California, this is a duplication of your rights and your case against Uber and Lyft. You may act on it, you may not act on it. I'm fine with it. If you rather want a free copy and check out right now, I'll send you a free copy. But it is so incredibly well laid out. It is so incredibly well written. It is so persuasive. And I have a thing for reading lawsuits, right? I'll check in, I'll check out. This had me riveted from the beginning till the end. And I think any legal scholar, any person out there wanting to study law, any youngster should really, really look at how this case is laid out, how persuasive the points are in this case. Now, I want to jump into the room. I want to acknowledge Dennis, Nifty 50, BB Junk Stuffix, Mario Cedillo, Abstract Impressions, Robin Reneth, Jimmy Safa, Shine Telemundo, Jeffrey Bennett, Mario Cedillo. The complaint for injunctive restitution and penalties, it's basically the people of the state of California, and you could put anything in there. You could say people of the state of Florida, people of the state of Texas, right? We're all rideshare drivers, right? This just happens to be filed by the Attorney General Javier Becerra in California that I've met personally, and his deputy is one of my very, very good friends. So I'm going to get so much more juice as this case progresses directly from his deputy. and I want to keep you informed. But for now, I think the best way I can keep you informed is to share this lawsuit with you, right? They are it versus Uber Technologies Incorporated, a Delaware corporation, Lyft Incorporated, a Delaware corporation, and DOE's 1 to 50 inclusive. Does anybody know what it means when they write and DOE's 1 to 50 inclusive? It means if they become aware of any other party that they can attach, they can just file an amendment and add names and add names and add names to the suit. That's how they write. They cover themselves when they say, and DOE's 1 to 50 inclusive. Now, verified answer required pursuant to Code of Civil Procedure, Section 446. I'm not going to read out all the legal terms and things. I'm going to go more and talk about the juice of this case. We have Sherelle in the house. Art Braza is in the house. San Diego rideshare drivers in the house. Trading US stocks is in the house. And yes, what about, good question, what about attaching Razia LLC? They do that. They do that in their First Amendment. This is just to say, hey guys, you put on notice, you two big companies will go after everyone, right? They do. So right on the top here, they lay out who the hitters are, right? The Attorney General, and then all the different city attorneys of San Francisco, of San Diego, of Los Angeles. If you would file the equivalent in Texas, it would be the Attorney General of Texas, and then let's say the City Attorney of Houston, City Attorney of Austin, City Attorney of San Antonio, City Attorney of Dallas, Texas, right? So this lawsuit can pretty much be duplicated anywhere. And I think it should be a really, really good eye-opener for all those other attorney generals in other states to go after Uber, because once you understand what you are owed in this case, right, it is mind-boggling. I don't think that people really know where they are owed money from Uber and Lyft. This lays it out. So there you have all the attorneys, they mention them. Introduction. I'm going to read you the introduction, and it'll take a while to get through this. We have plenty of time. We can jump back into the room. We can go. Robin, you're more than welcome to get a copy of that. Like I said, you have my email, right? I put it in the title. You can email and say, hey, Torsten, Rideshare Professor, please send me that free copy that you promised your subscribers. I'll gladly do that, right? There it is, my email again, but it's also up in the title. So in the early stages, when Uber and Lyft started selling ride-hailing services in 2010 and 2012, respectively, they made the calculated business decision to misclassify their on-demand drivers as independent contractors rather than employees. Let's stop there. Many of you, I know many people that would rather like to be treated as independent contractors. I know many people that want more rights and more money and say, you know, maybe I should rather be an employee. All I can tell you for the 100th time, right, is that they are not treating you as a true independent contractor. It's very clearly stated in here why they are not doing that, right? And I also don't think, personally, it's just my personal opinion, I wouldn't want to be an employee of Uber and Lyft. But what I think that AB5 and the lawsuits where they put so much pressure on these corporations is that we are pushing for a hybrid, something in the middle, right? Something in the middle. Because if you were a true independent contractor, you would set your own rates in Vegas. I would set my own rates in Los Angeles. The next person would set their own rates in Houston, Texas, right? And then it would just be chaos because the one person would be driving for peanuts and the other one would be trying to really make money. It's not going to work. We need a hybrid in the middle. We definitely need more rights. We definitely need better pay. We definitely need to keep our flexibility to drive with whomever we wish to. And we should definitely keep our rights to drive whether we want to do night, just Monday, Tuesday, just the weekends, 80 hours a week. All of those things need to be in this hybrid law. So it is good that they are battling it out so that both the state and the companies can come up with something better. We need something better. We deserve something better. It is not right to work for less than minimum wage, right? And again, I'm going to reiterate this. I am not for employee status. I do not ever want to be an employee of Uber and Lyft. But I do think there is a new category in the works, whether it's a new gig worker law or a new gig worker classification that all of us can benefit from. So they made the calculated business decision to misclassify their on-demand drivers as independent contractors rather than employees. Both companies continue to misclassify their drivers and have exploited hundreds of thousands of California workers in direct contravention of California law. I can also replace there and have exploited hundreds of thousands of Texan workers in direct contravention of Texas law. I can also replace and have exploited hundreds of thousands of Florida workers in direct contravention of the Florida law. It's universal, right? Samia, you're going to have to email me. I'm not going to go through thousands of messages here and pick out all the emails. My email is in the title of this video. Grab it and then email me and say, hey, Torsten, I want a copy of it. It's 27 pages long. Number two, by misclassifying their drivers, Uber and Lyft evade the workplace standards and requirements that implement California's strong public policy in favor of protecting workers and promoting fundamental fairness for all Californians, for all Texans, for all Floridians, for all, you get it, right? This long-standing policy framework includes a comprehensive set of safeguards and benefits established by the state of California. From here onwards called the state, cities and counties such as minimum wages, overtime, premium pay, reimbursement for business expenses, workers' compensation coverage for on-the-job injuries, paid sick leave, and wage replacement programs like disability insurance and paid family leave. Uber and Lyft owe their drivers these benefits and protections. Let me read to you again this key sentence here, right? This long-standing policy framework includes a comprehensive set of safeguards and benefits established by the state of California, the state, cities and counties such as, let's go, minimum wages, overtime premium pay, reimbursement for business expenses, workers' compensation coverage for on-the-job injuries, paid sick leave, and wage replacement programs like disability insurance and paid family leave. Uber and Lyft owe their drivers these benefits and protections. Later on, they break down those points for you so you can understand them better. Now, you may be sitting there at home or you're sitting in your car right now. I welcome Samia, I welcome Matt. I'm trying to acknowledge everyone that's coming into the stream. You may be sitting at home, you know, staying at home, being safe. You might be sitting in your car because you're out and about and you come across this video, right? And all I can say is, get this free copy from me. You don't have to follow me and go through all 27 pages here. I'm going to give you my take on specific things if you really want some more clarity on the various points. But you're just as welcome to read this later. Again, I'm not forcing you to stick it out here with me through 27 pages, because I know right now this is going to be a long live feed, right? So recognizing the serious problem of employee misclassification and the harms it inflicts on workers, law-abiding businesses, taxpayers, and society more broadly, the California legislature enacted Assembly Bill 5, which took effect in January 1, 2020, Assembly Bill number 5, 2019-2020, registered SESS. I'm not going to go through all of that. Codified and extended the California Supreme Court's landmark unanimous decision in Dynamax Operations W Incorporated versus the Superior Court in 2018. California law is clear. Texas law is clear. Florida law is clear. For all the full range of protections afforded by California's wage orders, labor code, and unemployment insurance code, workers are generally presumed to be employees unless the hiring entity can overcome this presumption by establishing each of the three factors embodied in the strict ABC test. Mark Lugo's in the house, Rick Nelson San Diego's in the house, Robert Hunick is in the house, Wayne Lawrence is in the house, Mike Smith's in the house, Dahir Adam is in the house, James Campbell is in the house. Now, all of you have heard of this ABC test, right? And when you come across press releases, they don't really break it down what the ABC test is. They just sort of touch on it. They go into a lot of detail here. And once the Attorney General of California makes his argument why they meet the requirements of the ABC test, right, you will quickly understand that they should be employees. Media Night Radio is in the house. Oregon's in the house. Cool. I welcome you all. And I have 54 people in the house, and in the other stream, I also have people in the house, but I only have 16 likes, right? So don't forget to like and subscribe. New t-shirt that arrived, probably made in China, right? Or wherever it was made. But I thought it was extremely loud, and it makes the point. Jacoby Spaulding's in the house. John Bloxham's in the house. Good to see you. And again, John, you just walked in. I also said I don't want the employee status, right? But right now, believe me, when you read this, you are not an independent contractor, right? So I think something like an independent contractor with more rights is where we are heading to, right? Uber and Lyft cannot overcome this presumption with respect to their drivers. Uber and Lyft are traditional employers of these misclassified employees. They hire and fire them. They control which drivers have access to which possible assignments. They set driver quality standards, monitor drivers for compliance with those standards, and discipline drivers for not meeting them. They set the fares. Passengers can be charged and determine how much drivers are paid. Uber and Lyft are transportation companies in the business of selling rides to customers, and their drivers are the employees who provide the rides they sell. The fact that Uber and Lyft communicate with their drivers by using an app does not suddenly strip drivers of their fundamental rights as employees. So I think it is a good thing. I honestly think it is a good thing that the state, or hopefully soon states, push the companies towards becoming employees, but don't make them employees, right? Say, hey, this is all the money you owe, because they are under the law. They are employees. There's no way out for them, right? But if the states are smart, if the companies are smart, they would sit down at the negotiation table and they would work out something in the middle, right? Because your freedom to choose with whomever you want to ride, whenever you want to ride, I don't think those freedoms will ever go away. It's something you don't have to worry about. It will always be there. The question is, if the states push hard enough, will we come out with better conditions, right? The reason why this was accelerated, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the pandemic. In the pandemic, there was nothing codified. There was nothing in there for independent contractors. They had to push for a law, including us, because we were not included. The W-2s, the employees, everybody was included except for us. As I say that right now, many of my brothers and sisters in the stream haven't received their monies yet. and employees have received their monies. Many have received their stimulus. Many haven't received their stimulus, right? So this forced the issue. There was no sick leave. There was no safety net. There was nothing for independent contractors / employees. There was nothing in place. Now they have the chance to force it. God forbid another pandemic arises in 5 years' time. I hope it never happens. But if it does, there will be laws in place and people will be taken care of, right? This, my friends, sadly pushed the issue. But rather than own, I'm going to carry on, but rather than own up to their legal responsibilities, Uber and Lyft have worked relentlessly to find a workaround, right? I always say a workaround. They lobbied for an exemption to AB5, but the legislator declined. They utilized driver contracts with mandatory arbitration and class action waiver provisions to stymie private enforcement of drivers' rights. And now, even amid a once-in-a-century pandemic, they have gone to extraordinary lengths to convince the public that their unlawful misclassification scheme is in the public's interest. Both companies have launched an aggressive public relations campaign in the hopes of enshrining their ability to mistreat their workers, all while peddling that lie that driver flexibility and worker protections are somehow legally incompatible. As this case builds, it gets stronger and stronger in its verbiage. I'm telling you right now, I've read thousands of these type of lawsuits, right? I've written many of my lawsuits. This is in a class of its own. It's Moose in the house. Droomed 11, thanks for the Potter handy referral. You're welcome, and they will take really good care of you. They're awesome people. Robert Hunica says, make us wear uniforms now too. No face masks, no drive. Yeah, so they will want to take a photograph of you. You know, they have visual recognition, and then obviously you will have some sort of covering on it. So they will probably recognize your facial features above the mask. They'll probably have to rewrite that software a little bit. That software, by the way, was developed by Israelis who came from the military. And then they also sold that software to Facebook and Google, the facial recognition software. Now they probably have to tweak it a bit. Why do they have to tweak it? Because the software probably has to recognize from the nose, the cheekbones up to the hair, and then the software will want to recognize that you have a mask. So if you're taking the photo, okay, Torsten or James or Tris is wearing the mask. Those are his eyes, his nose. I've got a big nose, by the way. And they say, okay, you're good to go. Tris, good evening. Rideshare Observer. John Bloxham, 100% correct. Yes, we need a hybrid. And that's what I'm pushing for too. And this in my conversations that I've had behind the scenes, I'm doing a lot behind the scenes. I'm not asleep, my friends. I work day and night, right? I did 3 deals today. I did 3 cars, sold 1 motorbike, probably made $6,000-7,000 today in one day. I don't sleep. I keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. I was on the phone with Javier's deputy, Robert McKim, and said, listen, what you need to push for is the hybrid. And please invite in drivers. I can get representatives from each city in California. I need them to sit down with Javier Becerra and understand that we don't want to be employees and we don't want to be true independent contractors, right? Because if we're true independent contractors, we have to set our own rates. We need something in the middle that makes sense. CENTS and SENSE. And he said, okay, I will see when the offices open up, when things loosen up, I will bring you in. right? So I'm going to go in. This is my chance now. I was always running up to San Francisco and Sacramento. I've been knocking on doors there. I've been sending people down in San Diego, Lorena Gonzalez, letters, emails. My best shot for us people to get the best deal, and not a deal. I would never sell anybody out, right? I would never push for 100% employeeship. I would never push for 100% independent contractor status and accept the status quo as is. I want better conditions in the middle, the flexibility to choose when you want to drive, and this is what I want to convey, mano to mano, right? Man to man, eye to eye with Javier Becerra. And I've really asked this deputy, I have to meet Javier Becerra and at least get that out there, put that out in the universe. And I think I can make a very convincing and compelling case with Javier Becerra if he gives me a little bit of one-on-one time. I have been promised that one-on-one time. It all depends when they go back to Hill Street in downtown Los Angeles. But I will get in front of him as I did probably a year and a half ago. So now, my friends, Uber and Lyft's motivation for breaking the law is simple. Uber and Lyft's motivation for breaking the law is simple. By misclassifying their drivers, Uber and Lyft do not bear any of the costs or responsibilities of complying with the law. Dynamex Supra 4, CAL 5th at page 913, when addressing investors, Uber pulls no punches. Our business, this is them, this is Uber's words, our business would be adversely affected if drivers were classified as employees instead of independent contractors. That was taken from the Uber Securities and Exchange documents, the SEC filings on page 28 on the filing date April 11, 2019, their own words. As one federal district judge recently observed, rather than comply with a clear legal obligation, companies like Lyft are thumbing their noses at the California legislator, right? The state's law against employee misclassification protect all Californians. They protect workers by ensuring they receive the compensation and benefits they have earned through their dignity of labor. Dynamex Supra 4 Cal 5th at page 952. They protect law-abiding businesses from unfair competition and prevent the race to the bottom that occurs when businesses adopt substandard wages and unhealthy working conditions, threatening jobs and worker protections across entire industries. They protect the tax-paying public, who is often called upon to assume responsibility for the ill effects to workers and their families of exploitative working arrangements. They are a lifetime and bulwark for the people against the erosion of the middle class and the rise in income inequality. That's AB 5, paragraph 1C. The time has come for Uber's and Lyft's massive unlawful employee misclassification schemes to end. The people bring this action to ensure that Uber and Lyft ride-hailing drivers, the lifeblood of these companies. So they're acknowledging us, right? The people bring this action to ensure that Uber and Lyft ride-hailing drivers, you and I, the lifeblood of these companies, receive the full compensation protections and benefits they are guaranteed under law to restore a level playing field for competing businesses and to preserve jobs and hard-won worker protections for all Californians. Here's another thing we have to be very, very honest about. Uber and Lyft, by doing this, by running this scheme, right, they are pushing many, many other competitors out of the business that are playing ball, right? They can't even compete with Uber and Lyft because of all the monies that Uber and Lyft are freeing up through this scheme and then pushing into, let's say, marketing, right? So you have to really look closely at competing businesses don't stand a chance against this monopoly, Uber and Lyft, because of their current practices. So James Campbell says Pittsburgh also has its bad areas, as does any city. Mike Ozra, hey wingman, what's up here? I'm here, my friend. I'm flying the jet plane at 900 miles an hour. Uberman Tampa, I'm really not surprised they've gotten away with not following the law of AB5. They have the country's best lawyers, so how does this get fixed? By them finally taking action, Uberman Tampa, finally, Attorney General has said, you know, come May, I am sick and tired of this nonsense. They're not complying. They are doing this. They're doing this to California. Boom! Let's hit them with another $2,500 penalty per driver on top of them countersuing. Remember, Uber and Lyft sued California. This is his reply. Okay, you're not playing ball. You're not attending, or you're delaying to get onto the November ballot. Here we go. We have a few 100,000 drivers. Multiply that by $2,500 penalty because you're not complying. That's several $100 million, my friends. Now, Uber and Lyft wake up and say, not only do we have the AB5 problem, we now have further penalties on top of that. Good to see you here, Eduardo. Alliance Drivers Unite. Amount of control mechanisms by hiring entity over worker determines the appropriate classification. Thank you. Good to have you here and good to see you again. Really enjoy Edward's feedback and his links that he always shares with us. Now, the jurisdiction and venue, I don't have to go into that, right? That's really boring talk. The parties, pretty clear, right? State of California, Attorney General, city lawyers, and the other parties being Lyft and Uber and all the other little subsidiaries, right? They are known as the defendants in this lawsuit. Remember, in the other lawsuit, which Uber and Lyft and Postmates and two private individuals brought end of 2019, they were the plaintiffs. California was the defendant. Now they countersue in a new suit, and Uber and Lyft are the defendants. Attorney General, the state, and the city attorneys are the plaintiffs. So the defendants, very clear in this case, Uber Technologies and Lyft. Now it gets interesting. The factual allegations under Dynamex and AB5, California uses the ABC test to determine employee status. And that same goes for every other state. They will go by this Supreme Court ruling in 2018. Every state will follow the ABC test. So it's up to California, it's up to New Jersey, it's up to New York, it's up to Florida, it's up to Texas to show and clearly persuade the court, the system, the legal system, that this ABC test does determine employee status. Elias is in the house. Abstract Echo, Jimmy's in the house. You can push the government, but the government can push back a lot harder. And they probably have deeper pockets as well. Go Donnie Combs in the house. Good to see you, my brother. Gary Ludani is in the house. How are you, boss? Good to see you. Peril, sorry, just came on, so maybe this has been answered, but I'm wondering if we take part in this lawsuit, can we still collect for unemployment payments? Yeah, they are completely two separate pair of shoes. Unemployment, right, which you're getting from the state, or the stimulus money, one thing, right? The money, the payments that you get from Uber and Lyft as drivers, another thing. This lawsuit going after the state, going after the companies representing you, a whole nother pair of shoes. Has nothing to do with unemployment. Let me make that crystal clear. And I know I have another very strong legal eagle in the stream right now. I know that Abstract Echo, because I've read many of Abstract Echo Jimmy's comments, and I know that he's also very versed in the law, and I'm sure he will back me up on this, that unemployment and this lawsuit have nothing to do with one another. Tris made a really good point there. You might have to report it, but it won't count against you. So the factual allegations, remember, this is the state, this is the people, this is us, the drivers. Under Dynamex and AB5, California uses the ABC test to determine employee status. The California Supreme Court's 2018 decision in Dynamex Supra, along with the passage of AB5, which went into effect January the 1st of this year, have established that the ABC test governs the determination of whether a worker is properly classified as an employee or independent contractor for purposes of the Labor Code, the Unemployment Insurance Code, and the wage orders of the Industrial Welfare Commission, IWC. Under the ABC test, for workers to be properly classified as independent contractors rather than employee, a hiring party such as Uber or Lyft has the burden of establishing that all of the following three conditions are satisfied. A, the worker is free from the control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of the work and in fact. B, the worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. And C, the worker is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed under Labor Code, paragraph 2750(3)(a), paragraph 1(c), generally Dynamex Supra. I'm not going to quote the law there, but it's in the document. If you request this 27-page document, I will take my time and email it to you, right? These three requirements are referred to as parts A, B, and C of the ABC test, respectively, because the hiring entity must establish all three parts of the ABC test in order to lawfully classify a worker as an independent contractor. The hiring entity's failure to satisfy any one part of the ABC test results in the worker in question being classified as an employee rather than an independent contractor. And that's Dynamex Supra 4 Cal the 5th at page 963. Look it up. Now, each defendant operates a transportation service that sells on-demand rides provided by drivers whom each defendant has misclassified as independent contractors. Okay, so they now make the argument that, hey, Uber, Tony West likes to call themselves a tech platform. They just flat out make the argument, ladies and gentlemen, you are a transportation company, right? And you sell on-demand rides provided by drivers whom each defendant has misclassified. For the purpose of this complaint, drivers refers to individuals who fall into one or both of the following two categories. First category, all individuals, talking about us, all individuals who have driven for Uber as ride-hailing drivers in the state of California or in the state of Texas or in the state of New Mexico at any time since May the 5th, 2016, and who, number one, signed up to drive as a ride-hailing driver directly with Uber or an Uber subsidiary under their individual name or with a fictional corporate name, and two, were paid by Uber or an Uber subsidiary directly under their individual name or with a fictional corporate name for their services as ride-hailing drivers. Second category, all individuals who have driven for Lyft as ride-hailing drivers in the state of California at any time since May the 5th, 2016, and who, one, are signed up to drive directly with Lyft or as Lyft subsidiary as ride-hailing drivers under their individual name or with a fictional corporate name, and two, are or were paid by Lyft or a Lyft subsidiary directly under their individual name or with a fictional corporate name for their service as ride-hailing drivers. Passengers refer to individuals who receive Uber and or Lyft ride-hailing services through such drivers. That's how they classify drivers. David J says, let's flush Dara down the toilet. I have flushed Dara down the toilet many, many a times. I will more than gladly do another ritual flush of Dara if you remind me a little later in this feed. For now, I want to really get to the juicy part where you guys will get excited. Each defendant operates a ride-hailing transportation service in which passengers may request and pay for on-demand rides from either defendant by using that defendant's smartphone application, the Uber app, the Lyft app, commonly known as the app, or the defendant's app respectively, and collectively apps or defendant's apps, right? Ace the Gruber Surge Beast, I like that name. Dara Khosrowshahi is indeed a big joke. By the way, what did you guys think of their move on Grubhub today? Right? They can let 3,500 employees go in a 3-minute Zoom call, but the very next day they have all the money in the world to buy Grubhub. Interesting, right? Double standards, I would say. Each defendant has hired hundreds of thousands of ride-hailing drivers across the state of California, across the state of Texas, across the state of Florida, to provide on-demand rides throughout the state to passengers who book such rides through either defendant's app. Lyft was founded in 2012 as a ride-hailing service of Zimride. I did not know that. Zimride later changed its name to Lyft and subsequently sold the Zimride component of its business, a long-distance carpooling service, to focus on offering on-demand rides. As of January the 2nd, 2020, Lyft had a market capitalization of approximately $13 billion US. Uber was founded in 2009 as a ride-hailing service. As of January the 2nd, 2020, Uber had a market capitalization of approximately $53 billion. Among the various ride-hailing options offered by defendants, Uber and Lyft, by far the largest is an option in which individuals with non-commercial driver's licenses provide on-demand rides to passengers via each defendant's app using ordinary passenger vehicles. Lyft refers to this on-demand option as Lyft. Uber refers to this option as UberX. UberX. And by the way, I would say 76 to 78% of drivers are in that UberX category. The remaining, these are the real percentages, the remaining 24%, right, fall into other categories such as XL, minivans, SUV, black, comfort, luxe. The same goes for Lyft. Under the ABC test, each defendant misclassifies its drivers. It's going to get better and better. I get really excited about this stuff. I love the law. I love using the law. Nameless, due to skill, strength, lousy attitude, slow, etc. Not sure I'm following you. Oh, I see. Alliance A hybrid class to accommodate Uber and Lyft will undermine both classes. Independent contractors and employees, flexibility and freedom can be afforded drivers even as employees. IC is required to be free just as a plumber, says Alliance #Drivers Unite. MZ Lizzie G is in the house, nameless. So why is your attention so intense on this live? Laughing my ass off, you're a joke. It's okay. You may think I'm a joke, but I fight for the drivers, right? And I would hate to look into your bank account right now, right? So let's not talk about jokes, because once you're pointing fingers, you are judging people, right? So if you want to call me a joke, that's your own. I'm not nameless. My name is in the email above. Probably you can't read, right? If you have a problem with reading, doesn't look like you have much of an education there if you can't even read my name in the title. It's written out there, Torstenkunert. I have a name, I have an identity. Lizzie G doesn't really stand for much, does it? MZ, what does MZ stand for? Right? That to me, clueless, nameless, right? So, good try. Unfortunately, your bullshit goes straight by here. Slap, slap, we ignore. Under the ABC test, each defendant misclassifies its drivers. Since first launching their ride-hailing service, each defendant has misclassified and continues to misclassify its drivers as independent contractors instead of employees. Each defendant requires its drivers as a precondition of providing rides through the defendant's app to agree to standard form contracts and addenda. Each defendant's contracts and addenda contain standardized terms and conditions that each defendant sets regarding its driver's work. Oh, I apologize. I thought she was trashing me. I apologize. I take it back. I don't know who. So, Ms. Lizzie, I apologize. I thought you were going off on me, right? And calling me nameless. I thought I'd identified myself as Torstenkunert, rideshare professor. So I owe you an apology. Right now, you'll get it. But I'm not sure what nameless is about. Actors are a dime a dozen. For those who think they have skills like acting, LOL, dream on. So I don't know what nameless. Firstly, if you're nameless, you don't have an identity. You don't identify with anything, right? And if you're here to stir shit, if you're here to troll, let me know. Because I have a surprise for trolls, right? So musicians are a dime a dozen, actors are a dime a dozen. I'm not sure how that. Should we do a vote here? Who wants to flush troll? Who wants to flush nameless? Who wants to keep nameless? Who are you calling untalented? Are you talented? Are you trying to make a point that you are talented, nameless, and you're judging everybody else as being untalented? Those type of people don't have a playground here, nameless. So you adjust your tune, or I will throw you the fuck out of this room so fast, right? But if you coming in here trash talking other people and calling them untalented or professions untalented, we are not here to rate talents, right? You used to be talented. And you had a taste of both worlds. Okay, I'm not sure where you're going with this conversation, but it's not serving us. So stick with the facts here and talk about these, and please don't trash anyone in this room. Okay? Don't trash anyone here. So keep it real, because you're about to be flushed out of here. So under the ABC test, each defendant misclassifies its drivers. Since first launching their ride-hailing services, each defendant has misclassified and continues to misclassify its drivers as independent contractors instead of employees. Each defendant requires its drivers as a precondition of providing rides through defendant's app to agree to standard form contracts and addenda. Each defendant's contracts and addenda contain standardized terms and conditions that each defendant sets regarding its driver's work. Each defendant's contract and addenda also contain boilerplate language unilaterally designated each defendant's drivers as independent contractors. You're very judgmental, Nameless, and I'm not enjoying it. He says some are too old or slow and don't have it anymore. You like to judge people, right? Are you perfect? When Dennis says flush him, it's time to flush. I was waiting for one more. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a person who has no name. They call themselves Nameless, like to point fingers, like to trash everybody else, like to tell how old people, you're insulting old people here. So let me introduce you to Nameless. It's a piece of shit. It stinks. It's nameless. And here you go, my friend. Nameless, listen to the sound of the flusher. Because there you go, deep, 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 deep down into the sewage pipes, right? Very far. Oh, hang on. Nameless is one that actually re-emerges. So there we go. I have no time for you. No identity, Nameless, and trashing everyone else. So the people have spoken. Several people gave the flush command. I listen to my subscribers. If my subscribers say flush, 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 if multiple people say flush, obviously we have a troll amongst us. And gone he is. Into the deep pipes. I'll do a Dara flush, a ritual Dara flush a little bit later. I don't know, people that, not to go off course here because I really want to stick to the facts, right? But people who come into a room with an identity called Nameless, they don't have a name, they don't have an identity, they call themselves Nameless, and then they start doing this. Old people that, this people that, those people are untalented, right? Who on earth do they think they are? They don't even have an identity. So I'm very, very happy that the House has spoken. Exactly. Now, on to more important things. Part of the ABC test, control and direction. Part of the ABC test is control and direction. Each defendant, obviously defendants, every time you hear the word defendants, just automatically think Uber and Lyft, right? This is the suit California against Uber and Lyft. So the defendants always, when you hear the word defendants, it's Uber and Lyft. Each defendant retains all necessary control over its driver's work, which is to transport passengers from point A to point B in a car. Can't say it more simple, right? There it is. Each defendant's app, the Uber app, the Lyft app, in combination with each defendant's policies, functions like an algorithmic manager that effectively supervises its drivers like a human manager. Interesting, right? Each defendant determines what drivers are eligible to provide ride-hailing services on its app and can change its driver standards in its discretion. Each defendant dictates the types of cars it drivers. Each defendant dictates the types of cars its drivers may use on its app, as well as the standards its drivers' vehicles must meet. Each defendant can change its vehicle standards in its discretion. Don't we know about that? Changing the vehicle standards at its discretion. How many millions upon millions upon millions of dollars has that cost us, right? Some people go out and get a car, they buy an SUV. The next thing, 3-4 months later, they change the category, they change the conditions, and you're stuck. Don't we know about that? Driver's tenure with each defendant is for an indefinite time, but each defendant retains the right to terminate or pause a driver's tenure at any time in accordance with terms, conditions, and policies that each defendant sets in its discretion. Brooke B, you have my email. I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to get money from them. Each defendant, what state are you in, Brooke B? Each defendant sets the fares that passengers pay for rides received through its app. Each defendant, Uber and Lyft, not its drivers, collects fare payments directly from passengers. Each defendant sets the amount of compensation that it pays its drivers for providing ride-hailing services to passengers on its app. Each defendant handles invoicing, claim, and fair reconciliation and resolution of complaints that arise from its drivers and passengers. Each defendant mediates and resolves conflicts involving its drivers in its discretion, ranging from driver-passenger disputes to allegations of driver or passenger misconduct to lost items, damaged vehicles, cleaning fees, and driver complaints of not receiving the full amount of compensation for ride-hailing services provided through the app. Each defendant monitors its driver's work hours and logs a driver off. Brennan, you only have to say it once. I heard you. Each defendant does not freely permit its drivers to choose their routes. For example, if a passenger complains to a defendant about the route used by a driver, here we have another little troll screaming and crying for attention. Screaming and crying for attention, Brennan Lormond. Did you not get the attention as a little child? Each defendant monitors its driver's work hours and logs a driver off its app for 6 hours if the driver reaches a 12-hour driving limit. Each defendant does not freely permit its drivers to choose their routes. For example, if a passenger complains to a defendant, Uber and Lyft, about the route used by a driver, each defendant reserves the right to adjust the fare if it decides that the driver took an inefficient route. Listen to that. I mean, these guys are getting into the detail, my friends. And by the way, check this t-shirt out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. I bought this t-shirt today to get likes and subscribers. So don't be shy. Smack that button right now. I want to read number 44 again. Each defendant does not freely permit its drivers to choose their routes. For example, if a passenger complains to a defendant, Uber and Lyft are the defendants, about the route used by a driver, each defendant reserves the right to adjust the fare if it decides that the driver took an inefficient route. Who do I need to flash? I think I flashed him. Each defendant provides its drivers with their work and pay by controlling the dispatch of individual passengers to individual drivers through each of defendant's app. Each defendant's app controls which driver receives which ride requests and when. Again, each defendant's app controls which drivers receive which ride requests and when. Each defendant controls and limits the information available to its drivers and passengers through each defendant's app, which each defendant may change at any time without notice. When a passenger requests an on-demand ride through defendant's app, the app shows and matches that passenger with only one driver at a time, regardless of the number of nearby drivers. Appreciate that, Nessa. I read it, Nessa. Mike Shams, you're right. Could be. So, when a passenger requests an on-demand ride through defendant's app, the app shows and matches that passenger with only one driver at a time, regardless of the number of nearby drivers. Similarly, when a driver is available to provide an on-demand ride, the app shows and matches that driver with only one passenger at a time, regardless of the number of nearby passengers. Drivers and passengers do not freely negotiate over the terms of an on-demand ride. Instead, they are selectively steered to one another through the centralized direction of the app. Udaya's in the house. All right, Brooke, just send me the details on how Uber scammed you, how Hertz scammed you. I'm not going to derail this interesting conversation because all you want to do is talk about Hertz. I told you already, you have my email, you send it to me, and I will address it, but not here, right? But you're more than welcome to rage against them if you want to right now. You're free. This is your room. You can rage against Hertz or Uber or Lyft. I will not hold you back. The only people I do sometimes have to restrain and hold back are people that are trashing people, right? But if you want to go off on the company, if you want to highlight something, if you want to talk about how they scammed you, this is your platform. You've deserved the right to be here, right? So, but again, I set very clear boundaries, right? Anyone that is pointing fingers and trashing. Liam, do you want to tell the people in the house what you won yesterday? Right. So my fiance's son is Liam, and he won a big award, and that took place between all the schools or the school districts. Come over here, explain it. This is amazing. This kid is amazing. Come over here.
So I got food in my teeth.
So that's Liam.
Hello.
That's my fiance's son. He's an awesome kid. So what happened yesterday? You won a cruise. You won a cruise, right?
Yeah, I won a
cruise.
cruise.
And money.
And
And how old are you?
14.
14. And how did you win that? And how many people did you compete against?
I'm not sure how many people I competed against, but I think it was like 150.
150
somewhere
people.
around that.
Okay. And in the entire school district?
Yeah, the entire school district, like 1,000 or just
our school district, yeah. Right? And you got the number one. You got the number one prize, right? And yeah. What did you have to do to achieve that wonderful accomplishment?
Well, first I had to write 2 essays, and one of them was about the what was one obstacle that I had to overcome.
Okay.
And then the second one was about what I think it was about what the club means to me, because it was for Boys and Girls Club. So
Boys and Girls Club.
So okay. I won Youth of the Year for the Boys and Girls Club.
Youth of the Year for the Boys and Girls Club in our school district. Here he is, Liam, and I'm super proud of you, dude. I'm super proud. This is like my third boy. I've got Dylan and Ryan, 16 and 14, and then I have another 15. I mean, I got it all covered, and I got 2 girls, Gwen and Danu. You've met them all. I'm sure all of you guys have met all the kids, right? This is Laura's eldest, Liam, and I'm super proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
Awesome, well done. So, yeah, he deserves it. He puts in so much work. He puts in so much effort, and is just such a great kid. He really is. So I'm super excited for him. So number 47, when a passenger requests an on-demand ride through defendant's app, the app shows and matches that passenger with only one driver at a time, regardless of the number of nearby drivers. Similarly, when a driver is available to provide an on-demand ride, the app shows and matches that driver with only one passenger at a time, regardless of the number of nearby passengers. Drivers and passengers do not freely negotiate over the terms of an on-demand ride. Instead, they are selectively steered to one another through the centralized direction of the app. Right? That makes sense. Thanks, Mohammed. Very nice. Thanks for everyone for wishing him. I'm going to show him the feed later. Each defendant's app hides, listen to this, each defendant, and again, when I use the word defendant, it's always Uber and Lyft, right? Each defendant's app hides from its passengers key information about its drivers, experience, and vehicles, limiting drivers' ability to differentiate themselves and increase their earnings in the way a true independent contractor or entrepreneur typically would. And this is the point you guys have to allow yourselves to sink. This has got to sink in. This has got to sink in, because many people argue with me and say, but we are independent contractors. They are treating us as independent contractors. No, you think they are, but they're not, right? And here is the key argument of this. Each defendant's app, Uber and Lyft's app, hides from its passengers key information about its drivers' experience and vehicles, limiting drivers' ability to differentiate themselves and increase their earnings in their way a true independent contractor or entrepreneur typically would. Now, in my world, where I have my private limo company, where I set my rates, where Torstenkunert sets his rate, completely independent contractor, right? I'm competing against Westlake Limos. I'm competing against tons of limo companies in LA. But I get to set my rates. I get to set my conditions. You can accept them or you can decline them. If you accept them, I pick you up, I take you to the airport, and you pay me the amount that I, Torsten, have set for you, right? In that scenario, I can tell you, I am truly an independent contractor who decides which passengers I want to take, which I leave behind, when I want to work, when I don't want to work, right? So there's a really big difference, and too many of us, and not all of us, but too many of us we truly think that we are independent contractors when we're not. Alfredo, I know it's long, I know it's boring, but it'll be very, very informative. And it's really good to see how this Attorney General speaks up for you, for me, for every single human driver or food delivery person, for every gig worker out there, because this is not just a California thing. This is a United States thing, right? Because we're all gig workers, we're all, we would like to be, and we'd like to be truly treated as independent contractors, right? So each defendant's app allows its drivers only approximately 15 seconds to accept or reject a trip request. You know about that, don't we? We know about that. Drivers for each defendant who consistently do not accept, listen to this, drivers for each defendant who consistently do not accept or reject trip requests within the 15-second time limit may be temporarily logged out from each defendant's app. The length of this bar is within each defendant's discretion. That's that little punishment thing they like to do with us, right? We'll punish you if you do not accept or if you reject. Number 51, each defendant's app tracks its drivers. Drivers for each defendant must notify the respective defendant through its app of the driver's trip status at every key step of the on-demand ride. Number one, acceptance of the passenger's ride request. Number two, arrival to the pickup location of the passenger. Number three, start of the trip. And number four, end of the trip. Each defendant uses its app constantly to monitor and control its driver's behavior while its drivers are logged into the app. The long, sweet version of that, or the short version of that, is they completely monitor and control all of our whereabouts when we are on their app. And Miss Lizzie G, I owe you an apology. I am so sorry. Okay, I truly am sorry. I thought that you were boom, 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 going off on me, and you were actually going after this nameless character, and I got rid of this nameless character for your sakes, for my sake. So you were right in calling him out. I was wrong in assuming that you were attacking me, and for that I apologize. And thank you for accepting my apology. Now, each defendant specifies detailed rules for drivers to follow to create a uniform ride experience from which each defendant derives its brand recognition, reputation, and value. These rules, which each defendant bills as suggestions or tips, covers matter such as music, how to pick up passengers, and what its drivers can and cannot say to passengers. Let me read that again. These rules, which each defendant bills as suggestions or tips, covers matters such as music, how to pick up passengers, and what its drivers can and cannot say to its passengers. Each defendant retains the right to suspend or terminate its drivers, or to cease dispatching ride requests to its drivers through its app at any time if its drivers behave in a way that defendant deems inappropriate or in violation of a defendant's mandated rule or standard. These driver behaviors can include, among other infractions, canceling too many rides, not maintaining sufficiently high passenger satisfaction ratings, or taking trips routes each defendant deems inefficient. We know, you and I know, that is an unfair formula that they use there. And I call it wrongful termination in many cases, because they're not in our world. They're not seeing what's going on in our car. They're not part of the experience. They are simply acting on, very often, 90% of the time, on the misinformation that the passenger relays through the app to the company. And then they have the right to suspend or terminate the drivers, or as I call it, wrongfully suspend or wrongfully terminate its drivers. Many drivers out there write me those type of emails. Many drivers out there text me, today I was wrongfully terminated, and here is the reason why. So this is a big problem that I'm going to highlight when I print out this document. And if I get the chance to speak to Javier Becerra through my colleague, the Deputy Attorney General, I want to highlight this. I want to bring this to his attention, that the company too quickly jumps to its own conclusions and wrongfully terminates the driver, which causes a lot of stress, which cuts you off from the earnings, only because they took the passenger's words, the paying passenger's words, over the driver. Remember, the driver can be replaced. The passenger they need for ongoing payments. So they will always take the passenger's words over the driver's words. This is something I really have to convey crystal clear to Javier Becerra. Mr. Becerra, I say this on behalf of all drivers. We have another completely we have a big problem. It's another pandemic, and it's the pandemic of wrongful termination. And then lay out to him how easily it is for these defendants, Uber and Lyft, to terminate a driver. Always taking the passenger's words over ours. I think he will understand it when I break it down bit by bit by bit. Each defendant monitors and ultimately controls its drivers through feedback. Miss Lizzie, thank you. Thank you for keeping the space. Troll free. That's it. And Lizzie, if you ever want to get rid of a troll, I've got the toilet bowl right here. I owe you one. I'll flush them so fast. We had to flush a troll. No, we flushed 2 trolls today. Each defendant monitors and ultimately controls its drivers through feedback it solicits from its passengers on every ride via a rating system that each defendant uses to assess its driver's performance. Each defendant's app solicits feedback and prompts its drivers and passengers to rate one another from 1 to 5 stars for each defendant's benefit, as each defendant uses the ratings for its own discipline of drivers, right? And that the way they discipline, or the way they, let me say, wrongfully terminate the drivers based on these random 1 out of 5 star ratings, accompanied by another false accusation, or he looked high, or he smelled like alcohol, I had to give him 1, just so that they can get out of the fare, right? That has to be addressed. It has to be addressed in this new law, that there are protections. There has to be a body that looks at the driver's side as well as the passenger side and then makes a verdict. Not just, oh, passenger told us that, great, we act on that, we wrongfully terminate. It's a one-sided affair, ladies and gentlemen. Each defendant determines the type of data and feedback its drivers and passengers may submit via its app. Each defendant also defines what basis its passengers and drivers may provide feedback through its app. Each defendant uses information from its passenger ratings to make decisions about disciplining or terminating its drivers. If the average rating of a defendant's driver falls below a certain threshold set by a defendant may suspend or terminate that driver from providing ride-hailing services on defendant's app. And I made that comment at 1 hour, 17 minutes and 38. This needs to be highlighted, right? I got to make a note that when I reference this video, I want to say, look, a coin has 2 sides. You have to always listen to both sides. You cannot adopt the defendant Uber and Lyft's principle that 90% of the time leads to wrongful deactivation. Las Vegas Uber driver in the house says 100% agree, but at the same time, some drivers deserve to be terminated. Look, there are definitely drivers that deserve to be terminated, right? Definitely, no doubt about it. There's definitely drivers out there that don't meet your standards, my standards. Robert Huneker says good night, and everybody else, get some good rest. Robert, thank you for being here. No doubt about it. But I'm talking about the majority of the cases. I'm talking about the majority of the cases presented by passengers, right? A lot of them, sadly, lead to wrongful termination. Each defendant frequently experiments with software features. Don't we know that? Let me read that again. Each defendant frequently experiments with software features that directly impact its drivers, creating an environment in which drivers are subject to ever-shifting working conditions. I have a big problem with that. John B., I appreciate you, buddy. Is that your husky? Love the picture. Thank you for the $10. Thank you, my fan. I appreciate you. Beautiful, beautiful dog. Love huskies. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I want to read this again because this leads to a lot of problems. Each defendant uses information from its passenger ratings to make decisions about disciplining or terminating its drivers. If the average rating of a defendant's driver falls below a certain threshold set by the defendant may suspend or terminate that driver from providing ride-hailing services on defendant's app. Each defendant frequently, this is the problem, each defendant frequently experiments with software features that directly impact its drivers, creating an environment in which drivers are subject to ever-shifting working conditions. They change these conditions, they change the app more times than we change our underwear in 1 week, my friends. Sounds crazy, but it's true. I know Laura's laughing right now. Did you score a lot of loot? You got a lot of stuff? You tired?
Yeah, they didn't have any bags at the grocery store.
No ways. So you had to put it all in?
By hand, every little box, everything, just throwing it in the car, wherever, rolling around.
So you put all of your stuff into the cart and then you had to literally...
Had to take it out of the cart and then put it in
They ran out of
bag.
bags. What was this, at Walmart?
Yep.
So they ran out of bags at Walmart. So your items were not bagged up. You had to literally do it one by one by one. Mark route and hammer time. It's sad. Somebody, Las Vegas Uber driver said there are YouTube channels fully dedicated on teaching people how to get free Uber and Lyft rides. We need to shut those down. If you can send me the links, I would literally have an attorney write a letter to YouTube, right? Because you are basically, those channels need to be shut down because they are teaching people to break the law and to hurt the drivers. And YouTube will act on that, right? So we have to point those out. Slide Hammer says the only good hammer is a slide hammer. I like it. Robert Renan says download SS8 form and send it in. IRS will determine status of submitter, and this information will be more data accumulated for the California complaint that proves Uber did not treat drivers as independent contractors. I love it. I always appreciate your feedback. So each defendant frequently experiments with software features that directly impact its drivers, creating an environment in which drivers are subject to ever-shifting working conditions, all determined in each defendant's discretion. According to Lyft, we frequently test driver incentives on subsets of existing drivers and potential drivers, and these incentives could have other unintended adverse consequences. See Lyft SEC 10K page 20, filing date February the 28th, 2020. According to Uber, there are over 1,000 experiments running on our platform at any time. There are over, this is their words, they're quoting them in the lawsuit, they're quoting the defendant Uber and Lyft's own words. According to Uber, there are over 1,000 experiments running on our platform at any given time. So we're an experiment to them. We're like guinea pigs, right? And this is under the hood of Uber's experimentation platform, August the 28th, 2018. And they give the link there as well. Each defendant introduces and then takes away features from its app in accordance with its own business decision. Let me read this again. Each defendant introduces and then takes away features from its app in accordance with its own business decisions. Each defendant exerts control over its app and thereby over its drivers. Let me read that again. Each defendant exerts control over its app and thereby over its drivers. Part B of the ABC test, usual course of business. Usual course of business. Each defendant's drivers are engaged in work that is within the usual course of each defendant's business, the provision of on-demand rides. Each defendant is a transportation company that sells on-demand rides to its customers. Let me repeat this for Tony West, who thinks otherwise. Each defendant is a transportation company that sells on-demand rides to its customers, i.e. its passengers who book and pay for such rides through the defendant's app. Plain and simple. Drivers provide the on-demand ride. Drivers provide the on-demand ride. They are an integrated and essential part of each defendant's transportation business. This is the state, the Attorney General recognizing you, recognizing me, acknowledging us, right? Drivers provide the on-demand ride. They are an integrated and essential part of each defendant's transportation business. The immediate availability and temporal convenience of an on-demand ride is the service that each defendant sells to its passengers. Each defendant publicly holds itself out to the public as a transportation company in the business of selling on-demand rides. And they completely deny this. But I love it when smart attorneys bring in evidence to counter that claim. Here it is. Each defendant publicly holds itself out to the public as a transportation company in the business of selling on-demand rides. Lyft has trademarked the slogan, "Your friend with a car." Lyft advertises, "Get a ride whenever you need one. A ride in minutes, and our drivers are always nearby so you can get picked up on demand in minutes." They're using their own verbiage. James Campbell, thank you, my friend. No crybaby moved back with his mom. I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. I was just concerned about No Crybaby's health, because he had some major health issues. Now, so they say they're not a transportation company, and then the Attorney General goes out and says, but hang on one second, you trademarked Lyft, you trademarked the slogan, "Your friend with a car." Lyft, you advertise, "Get a ride whenever you need one. A ride in minutes, and our drivers are always nearby so you can get picked up on demand in minutes." Uber has trademarked the slogan, "Everyone's private driver." Uber advertises, "We built Uber to deliver rides at the touch of a button. Always the ride you want. Request a ride, hop in and go. Sign up to ride, rides on demand. And get a reliable ride in minutes at any time and on any day of the year." So Tony West, which part of this verbiage don't you understand? You guys came up with these slogans, and as our friend Attorney General Javier Becerra, because he truly is our friend, he's everybody's friend. He may be sitting here in California on Hill Street, downtown LA, but he's your friend and he's my friend, because he's shoving it in their face and say, listen, stop lying. This is what you advertise. Each defendant represents to passengers that it prescribes the qualifications of drivers on its apps, as well as standards for drivers' quality of services. Each defendant bills its passengers directly for the entire amount of the on-demand ride, and each defendant's passengers pay the fare for the service to each defendant, not to the driver. If a passenger has an issue with the quality of the on-demand ride provided through defendant's app, they report that problem to the defendant, and defendant may refund or cancel the passenger's fare. Right? So they're really going into a lot of depth proving the ABC test. Each defendant is financially integrated with and dependent on its drivers. Each defendant only generates here we go. Each defendant only generates income for its ride-hailing business if its drivers transport and provide ride to passengers. This sentence needs to be underlined 20 times. Each defendant only generates income for its ride-hailing business, Uber and Lyft, if its drivers transport and provide rides to its passengers. This is the verbiage where they are in denial. They're pretending, no, that's not our business model. There it is, plain and simple, black and white. Each defendant sets the fare its passengers pay, collects the entire amount of the fare from its passengers, and then disperses a percentage of those fares to its drivers as compensation for providing the on-demand ride its passenger ordered, while keeping the remainder of the fare for itself. Without its drivers, labor to provide defendant service, the on-demand ride, each defendant's ride-hailing business would not exist. Without its drivers' labor to provide defendant service, the on-demand ride, each defendant's ride-hailing business would not exist. Plain and simple. Without the drivers, there's no business. And as Mark Roughton says, yeah, like 40 to 50, let's try 40 to 60%. Mike Smith says TNC's keeping more than a flat booking fee is unconscionable. 100% of variable costs, fuel, depreciation, maintenance, repairs are on the driver. Why should the TNC get a share of the miles? Good question. Defendants do not facilitate a marketplace or matchmaking service between independent drivers and passengers. Instead, they utilize their substantial resources and technology to shape every facet of the service they sell to the passengers, a branded on-demand ride. To offer an on-demand ride, defendants use their technology to choreograph the deployment of countless drivers in a localized geographic area and integrate themselves into every aspect of how those drivers provide the service of getting passengers to their destinations. Far from being a mere technology company, each defendant is deeply enmeshed in the provision of transportation services. Each defendant controls its passengers' access to its on-demand ride service and its drivers' access to providing such services. Each defendant prescribes qualification for its drivers, determines its driver supply, and designs and monitors the level of quality of service that its drivers must provide to defendants' passengers. Each defendant sets the fees, pricing, and incentives on its ride, and each defendant uses its app to distribute its drivers across a geographic area to provide an on-demand ride at a price and quantity that each defendant, in its business discretion, deems the most beneficial to its business model and delivery of services. And the same goes for Uber Eats. Each defendant also engages in extensive data collection and surveillance of its drivers, tracking its drivers' hours, movements, quality of services, and other metrics from when the drivers log on to the defendant's app until they log off. Each defendant uses this data to monitor and make disciplinary decisions regarding its drivers as well as for other business purposes. Do you mind giving me another bottle of water? Oh, I got it. I just went through 2 bottles of water. Gracias. Take one.
No, I've got water.
Alan Smith's in the house. Good evening. Scott Tucker's in the house. Hello, everyone. Go Donny.com. Wow, man. Yep. It's mind-blowing. Go Donny. I'll gladly send you the 27-page thing. You could make a great video on your channel. Please subscribe to Go Donny.com. Dr. Whisper, I love water. I don't know how many of these I drink a day. Tons and tons and tons. It's just right now. Probably 10, 12. So, Lyft's prospectus for its 2000 initial public offering, IPO, describes how its overall business strategy depends on its drivers. Let me repeat that. Lyft's prospectus for its 2019 initial public offering IPO describes how its overall business strategy depends on its drivers. Lyft describes its growth strategy as continuing to add density to our ride-sharing marketplace by attracting and retaining drivers to our platform to further improve the rider's experience. See Lyft's SEC S1 filing, page 1, filing date, March the 1st, 2019. Emphasis added, the prospectus identifies a key factor affecting Lyft's performance as maintaining an ample number of drivers to meet rider demand in our ride-sharing marketplace. In response to the fundamental question underlying Lyft's business model, why Lyft wins, Lyft's IPO prospectus definitely answers because Lyft is driver-centric on page 3. Uber's prospectus for its 2019 IPO also describes how drivers and the labor they furnish providing on-demand rides are the lifeblood of its business strategy. Tony West, listen up. Derek Kay, listen up. Uber does not mince words. If we are I'm going to say this very, very slowly here. Everybody listen up. If we are unable to attract or maintain a critical mass of drivers, our platform will become less appealing to platform users, and our financial results would be adversely impacted. Any decline in the number of drivers using our platform would reduce the value of our network and would harm our future operating results. See Uber's SEC S1 filing, Supra at PP 29 to 30, emphasis added. Uber's business model begins and ends with its drivers. Their words, Uber's business model begins and ends with its drivers. If that's the case, Uber, if that's the case, Lyft, that your business model begins and ends with its drivers, why are you treating them as non-essential? Let that sink in, Dara. I'm asking you. Logan Green, John Zimmer, I'm asking you. If your business model begins and ends with its drivers, why are you treating the drivers so poorly? Did he not read his own prospectus? Did Dara not read his own prospectus? Did Logan Green not read his own prospectus? There it is. Uber's business model begins and ends with its drivers. And I ask you again for the 20th time, why do you treat them like disposable trash? Part C of the ABC test. Independently established trade, occupation, or business. Part C of the ABC test, independently established trade, occupation, or business. Each defendant's drivers are not engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work they perform for each defendant. Driving itself is not a distinct trade, occupation, or business. When driving for each defendant, drivers are not engaged in their own transportation business, but are instead driving passengers and generating income for the respective defendant. There are no specialized skills or training necessary to drive passengers on a ride-hailing service. Consequently, each defendant permits drivers without any such skills or training to provide on-demand rides on its app. For example, both of defendants' largest ride-hailing options, Lyft and UberX, permit drivers to offer ride-hailing services with an ordinary driver's license and personal vehicle. That, by the way, is the skill set, right? I mean, the ability to drive, right? And maybe even more than that, the ability to interact with customers. I would say by far, one of the reasons we work for our 5 stars is that we enjoy and we love giving superior service, superior customer service, platinum service, right? Each defendant provides its drivers with a necessary tool and instrumentality to perform their on-demand ride-hailing services, its app. That's what they provide, the app. Each defendant's app is the exclusive means by which passengers and drivers can connect to request and provide each defendant's on-demand ride. Each defendant's drivers generally invest little to no capital to drive for each defendant. To offer ride-hailing services on each defendant's app, drivers only need a smartphone and a car. To offer ride-hailing services on each defendant's app, drivers only need a smartphone and a car. Each defendant directly shapes its driver's earnings and thereby effectively prevents its drivers from attaining the profits and losses that would ordinarily be the hallmarks of running their own independent business. Each defendant, not its drivers, prescribes the key factors that determine its drivers' earnings. Each defendant sets the prices charged to its passengers and controls its drivers' rate of pay, its drivers' territory, the supply of drivers on the overall app, and the marketing and advertising of each defendant's brand. The limited economic levers that each defendant leaves to its drivers, such as whether to drive at busier times or for more hours, are not consistent with the level of decision-making normally exercised by entrepreneurs or those operating their own independent businesses. Each defendant limits its driver's ability to freely decline and cancel rides that drivers think will be unprofitable. I got to read this one. This is one of the biggest ones. Each defendant limits its driver's ability to freely decline and cancel rides that drivers think will be unprofitable. Alliance at Drivers Unite says each defendant makes financial decisions universally for both riders and drivers. Correct. REG's in the house. Good to see you, my friend. If we can get more, if I can get more of these, I bought the shirt for this purpose here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Smash that, as our friend Dustin would say, smash that like button. it gets really good. It's really clear in the language on how it lays out the case, right? And I'm sure you will agree that they've done very, very well so far. Each defendant limits its driver's ability to see all ride requests in an area. So we don't see all the ride requests in one area. And this to gouge their potential earnings based on demand for their services. Each defendant limits its driver's ability to share their accounts with other drivers, thereby curtailing its driver's ability to individually expand their business offerings. So we can't even expand our business offerings. Each defendant prohibits its drivers from soliciting passengers' information, limiting the ability of its drivers to market themselves independently for repeat rides outside of defendant's app. Oh yeah, Lizzie, thank you for reminding everyone. I appreciate that. She said, also hit that bell button for this channel. It's always informative. Cool. So each defendant prohibits its drivers from soliciting passenger information, limiting the ability of its drivers to market themselves independently for repeat rides outside of defendant's app. Each defendant limits its driver's ability to take advantage of its app's financial incentives in an entrepreneurial fashion. Each defendant specifically targets individual drivers it invites to participate in various time-limited financial incentives that, for example, reward drivers for driving longer, for driving at certain times and places. These financial incentives are targeted to individual drivers based on each defendant's own opaque criteria as implemented by the algorithmic decision-making engines in its app. By selecting which drivers will be invited to participate in which financial incentives and on what individualized terms, each defendant in effect chooses which drivers are financial winners and losers. Each defendant as the employer, not the driver as an entrepreneur, determines the driver's earnings. Each defendant controls its driver's ability to earn compensation via its app, making trade-offs between its driver's earnings and the price each defendant charges to passengers to the benefit of each defendant's profit. Lyft describes these trade-offs in its 2019 annual SEC report, reporting that changes made by Lyft may be viewed positively from one group's perspective, such as riders, and negatively from another perspective, such as drivers. See Lyft's SEC 10K, page 24. That's what they say. Let me read this to you again. Lyft describes these trade-offs in its 2019 annual SEC report, reporting that changes made by Lyft may be viewed positively from one group's perspective, such as riders, and negatively from another's perspective, such as drivers. Uber's SEC filings describe how the greatest impact on Uber's take rate, the company's take on the difference between the passenger's fare on a ride and what the ride-hailing company pays out to the driver, has historically come through Uber's unilateral adjustments to drivers' incentives. See Uber's SEC S1, page 100. In its 2019 IPO perspective, Uber freely admits the control it exerts over its drivers' earnings and the fact that Uber's own profit comes at its driver's expense. Wow. Wow. Uber freely admits the control it exerts over its drivers' earnings and the fact that Uber's own profit comes at its driver's expense. As we aim to reduce driver incentives to improve our financial performance, we expect driver dissatisfaction will generally increase. Page 30. Let me let that sink in here for a second. I'm going to read it again. This is Uber. As we aim to reduce driver incentives to improve our financial performance, we expect driver dissatisfaction will generally increase. Wow. New Year's Eve, 60%. Yeah, New Year's Eve, they were really juicing up the numbers. So if you got money, it looked big, but they were actually taking a huge portion of that. So, number 4, defendants' unlawful misclassification of drivers results in unlawful and unfair business practices. The bold letters. Defendants' unlawful and misclassification of drivers results in unlawful and unfair business practices. It is evident that neither Uber or Lyft can meet their burden of showing that their drivers are independent contractors under California's ABC test for misclassification as adopted in Dynamex Supra case, blah, 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 AB5 under part of A of the ABC test. Defendants exercise control over their drivers through their apps, which in combination with their policies function like algorithmic managers that effectively supervise defendants' drivers like human managers. Under part B of the ABC test, drivers perform services within defendants' usual course of business, providing on-demand rides. Under part C of the ABC test, defendants cannot show that drivers have established independent businesses. That's true. Uber claims that drivers are in the heart of our service, and Lyft claims that drivers are what makes Lyft Lyft. But by misclassifying their drivers, defendants have devised an unlawful business model that denies these very same drivers the protections and benefits they have rightfully earned as employees, and thereby gained an unlawful and unfair competitive advantage in the marketplace. Defendants' misclassification scheme hurts vulnerable drivers, undermines law-abiding competitors, evades defendants' responsibility to contribute their share as employers into the state's social insurance programs, and harms taxpayers who are often called upon to address the negative consequences to drivers and their families of defendants' exploitative employment practice, says. Scott, I will send you the whole. Anybody that wants this entire document can email me. You know me. I will send it to you. All you do is you email Torstenkunert68 Gmail and say, hey, Torsten, please send me a copy. It's really fascinating when you read the argument and see how much detail they have put in to understand who the company is, who the driver is, who the passenger is. And they lay it out in crystal clear fashion how we are being manipulated by them. $19.98 Blue Dogs in the house. How are you? So defendants' unlawful misclassification deprives drivers of their rights as employees. Defendants' misclassification of their drivers' workforce has allowed defendants to gain an unlawful competitive advantage over their competitors by circumventing the protections and benefits that the law requires employers to provide to their employees. The laws violated by defendants include, but are not limited to, requirements relating to minimum wages, overtime wages, business expenses, meal and rest periods, wage statements, paid sick leave, and health benefits and social insurance programs. If and when the state and these companies negotiate, and along with the negotiations give us the flexibility to choose and the flexibility to drive when we want to drive, these things should be incorporated. And the laws violated by defendants include, but are not limited to, the requirements relating to minimum wages. It's a given, got to make that minimum wage. Overtime wages, by the way, overtime wages add up, right? You go over that 8-hour threshold, you should be paid 1.5 to 2 times. The business expenses, the meal and rest periods are not paid by them, wage statements, paid sick leave, and health benefits and social insurance programs. Number 1, minimum wages. The law requires drivers to be paid the applicable state or local minimum wage for each hour worked, regardless of the compensation formula or method. Defendants do not guarantee their drivers a minimum wage under state and local laws. Instead, each defendant pays its drivers for completed rides based on the time and distance of the ride and other factors dictated by each defendant, including, but not limited to, dynamic pricing, pay surges, base rates, and minimum fares. Again, defendants do not guarantee their drivers a minimum wage under state and local laws. Instead, each defendant pays its drivers for completed rides based on the time and distance of the ride and other factors dictated by each defendant, including, but not limited to, dynamic pricing, pay surges, base rates, and minimum fares. Defendants do not pay their drivers for all their hours worked. Examples where each defendant fails to pay its drivers include, but are not limited to, time spent refueling, time spent for cleaning and maintaining the vehicles, time spent for off-duty rest periods, time spent driving to and returning from rides, and time spent logged on and monitoring each defendant's app for ride requests. Defendants cannot provide on-demand rides without the performance of these tasks. I got to repeat this because here we are and say, hey, we will not take the 20-25 minute trip to go and pick up someone. Some people say, okay, my threshold is 15 minutes. You're driving out 15 minutes, you pick them up, you're not getting paid for those 15 minutes. You then perform a duty, you drop them off, and then you have to drive all the way back. You're not getting paid for that part, right? According to this, you should, right? So defendants do not pay their drivers for all their hours worked. Examples where each defendant fails to pay its drivers include, but are not limited to, time spent refueling, however long that takes, time spent cleaning and maintaining their vehicles, you know about that, time spent for off-duty rest periods, you know about that, time spent driving to and returning from rides, you definitely know about that, and time spent logged on and monitoring each defendant's app for ride requests, we know about that. Defendants cannot provide on-demand rides without the performance of these tasks. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet their minimum wage obligations with respect to their drivers, including hours that are entirely unpaid and hours that are paid at less than the applicable minimum wage. When you go to potterhandy.com in California, for example, and you start using the damages calculator and you start plugging in those numbers, the numbers add up very, very quickly. Number 2, overtime wages. The law requires drivers to be paid the applicable overtime rate of pay 1.5 times or 2 times the driver's regular rate of pay for all hours worked in excess of 40 per week. There are so many drivers that I'm talking to right here in the stream that are far over 40 hours per week. 45 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours per week. Everything over 40, right, is either multiplied by 1.5 or by 2 hours. And that's what's called overtime wages. for all hours worked in excess of 8 hours per day, and for all hours worked on the 7th consecutive day of work in a work week. Defendants do not pay their drivers overtime as required by law, despite the fact that drivers working overtime help defendants to ensure the steady and constant supply of rides on which defendants' business depend. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these overtime pay obligations with respect to their drivers. My friends, overtime hours add up very, very quickly. You see there, somebody just said, so GT Racer 66 said he does 50 hours a week, right? So where are those 10 extra hours per week that should be paid overtime? Week after week, month after month, year after year. Do you know how much money that is? So Kenneth Hollick says, and I want to read this is a big one. Kenneth says, I drive a lot of dead miles on my way back from a long trip. We're not getting paid for that. By law, every state should be paying you for that time and for those miles. Business expenses. The law requires drivers to be paid or reimbursed for the necessary expenses in performing their work. Listen up. Drivers pay for business expenses they incur in the course and scope of performing their work for defendants, including but not limited to vehicle expenses, wear and tear, registration, insurance, gas, maintenance, repairs, etc., and phone and data expenses associated with using defendants' apps. These expenses are substantial. For example, the Internal Revenue Service publishes a standard mileage rate, we know about that, which currently estimates the cost of operating a vehicle for business purposes at 57.5 cents per mile. Don't ignore that, ladies and gentlemen. Let me repeat this, which currently estimates the cost of operating a vehicle for business purposes at 57 cents per mile. You're driving 100 miles, that's $57.50. That's really costing you those 100 miles. And how often do you drive 100 dead miles? Ka-ching, $57, ka-ching, $57, ka-ching, a lot. There have been days, my friends, where I've driven 300-400 miles. And now I start using those numbers. It's a lot of money. Drivers provide ride-hailing services for defendants using their vehicles without any reimbursement for this significant work-related expense. Defendants impose all the costs of operating the vehicles necessary to perform their ride-hailing business on drivers through defendants, though defendants could not operate their ride-hailing business without them. There we go. Trading Stock says, yes, 400 miles a day. I know that feeling, my friend. A lot of gas, a lot of wear and tear, a lot of those unpaid 57.5 cents per mile. Where are those dollars? Defendants impose all the costs of operating the vehicles necessary to perform their ride-hailing business on drivers, though defendants could not operate their ride-hailing business without them. It's a powerful statement. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these expense reimbursement obligations with respect to drivers. Another one, meal and rest periods. We know about that. Geez, I'm getting hungry. I'm going to stop at an In-N-Out. Okay, now I've got to find parking. Now I've got to go stand in the line of In-N-Out. Now I've got to pay. Now I've got to wait for my food. Now I get my food. Now I start eating my food. some point I finished completing eating the food, might be a little bit tired because I've just eaten, sit there in the car, rest for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, just kick back in my seat, add that up. Took me 3 to 5 minutes to find parking. I'm playing a typical scenario that you and I know about, right? Took me another 3 to 5 minutes waiting in line, 10 minutes. Took me about another 5 minutes to wait for my food, if not longer, sometimes 10 minutes, looking at 20 minutes. Took me another 15 minutes to finish my food and my drink. I'm already on 35, 40 minutes. I get back in my car and decide I need another 20, 30-minute break. Who paid me for that hour that just went by? The law requires drivers to be provided with one 30-minute duty-free meal period for a work period for more than 5 hours, and a second 30-minute duty-free meal period for a work period more than 10 hours. Many people know that 10 hours is minimum. And I just did a calculation based on finding parking, standing in a line, and I said, with a little bit of rest, that's an hour. And I was not wrong. 30 minutes plus 30 minutes adds up to exactly an hour, which they are not paying for. The law further requires drivers to be provided a 10-minute paid off-duty rest period for every 4 hours worked, or major fraction thereof. So if I'm working 8 hours, I should be given 20 minutes rest period, right? If I'm working 10 hours, I should be given 25-minute rest period. Authorized or required rest period time shall be counted as paid timed worked. So all those hours you've driven, all those rest periods you were never paid, it's money owed to you. And those class action attorneys and attorneys go on it. Now I'm telling you something. If you really want to get creative and you say, Torsten, email me this document, right? And now you start changing some of the verbiage, start taking some of the stuff out, right? And you go and file in small claims court up to 10,000, or in superior court, or you go to the arbitrators and you say, hey, I, Jack or Jill, filing the suit, everywhere you see the attorney general or the plaintiff, you put your name in. Everywhere you see the defendant, you're going after Uber and Lyft, and you file almost identical. I'm not saying exactly identical, but you scrape this document. You could slap your signature on it. You could slap a court stamp on it and say, court, I'm representing myself. Right? So they've got the document. It'll move ahead, and now you start with your discovery. Request for admissions, interrogatories, depositions. I'm very good at that. I'm very good at asking the tough questions. Did you or did you not? Right? Admit that you did this and this. Admit. So if they say, no, we didn't do that, and then it comes trial, and they've been questioned, and it's on paper that they were lying, they're done. That's when you fried. And a good attorney will go after those weaknesses. So those requests for admissions, admit that you did this. Admit that you did bait and switch tactics with the referrals. Admit that you did not pay out on the meal and rest periods. What are they going to have to say? Oh, we did pay out for the meal periods? Admit that you did not pay for overtime. They have to say, I admit we did not pay out. I admit we did not pay for meal and rest. This is how you set them up. Right? Look them up. They're called RFAs, request for admissions. Admit that you blah, blah, blah. Admit that you did not pay for overtime hours. They cannot lie when it comes to that. So the law requires drivers to be provided with one 30-minute duty-free meal period for a work period of more than 5 hours, and a second 30-minute duty-free meal period for a work period of more than 10 hours. The law further requires that drivers to be provided a 10-minute paid off-duty rest period for every 4 hours or major fraction thereof. Authorized or required rest periods time shall be counted as paid time work. Defendants do not provide for off-duty meal periods and do not authorize or permit paid off-duty rest periods. Defendants do not provide a premium of 1 hour of pay at the employee's regular rate of compensation for each failure as required by law. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these meal and rest periods obligations with respect to their drivers. And when I write papers, this is how I corner the rat through the RFAs. Admit that you didn't do this and this. Admit that you did not pay me this. Admit that you did not pay me overtime. Do you see where I'm going with this? So number 5, wage statements. The law requires drivers to receive regular and complete itemized wage statements from defendants, which include, as applicable, gross and net wages earned, hours worked, hourly wages, piece rate wages, rest period pay, and non-productive time pay. Defendants do not provide drivers with itemized wage statements in conformance with California law. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these wage statement obligations with respect to their drivers. Paid sick leave and health benefits. Now, let's get to this point, and this really strikes hard because we're in a pandemic, and what are we lacking? Paid sick leave and health benefits that you and I should have. We should not have to go and beg or terrorize these companies on Twitter to try and get that money, or run to that doctor, run to that government official, submit all these documentations to beg, please pay us the sick leave, please pay us these health benefits. And then they turn around like my colleague paid him $150 or $300 for 2 weeks. It's a joke. The law requires drivers to be provided paid sick leave benefits as specified under California law and various local laws, including but not limited to the Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco sick leave ordinances. And I might as well add to that Dallas, Houston, Miami, Tampa, Florida, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Ohio, blah, 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 because it all works the same way. The law currently requires drivers in San Francisco to receive healthcare expenditures of $3.08 per hour. In recent years, the rate has ranged between $2.53 and $3.08 per hour. Drivers do not accrue the paid sick leave benefits or receive the healthcare expenditures from the defendants that employers are required to provide under state and local law. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these sick leave and healthcare expenditures obligations with respect to their drivers. And they brought the example of San Francisco. Number 7, social insurance programs. The law requires defendants to remit contributions or take other mandatory actions under the state's social insurance programs, including but not limited to unemployment insurance, disability insurance, paid family leave, workers' compensation, and San Francisco's paid parental leave ordinance. Correct. Even if you take paid parental leave, you're having a child, you're a female, you're a driver, you're having a kid, they got to pay you. But they're not. These programs are intended to provide wage replacements and other benefits in the event an employee loses a job, becomes disabled or injured, whether on the job or off, needs to care for a family member, or is otherwise unable to work. And we know about that. All I have to refer you to is February, March, April, May 2020. Say no more. Defendants have failed and continue to fail to meet these social insurance program obligation obligations with respect to their drivers. B, defendant's unlawful misclassification harms law-abiding competitors and would-be competitors. 1998 Blue Dog says, I don't think this case goes far enough. The executive and board members should be investigated for possible civil and criminal law violations. I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, and who knows? Maybe that's the threatening language that they can use in letters and private letters or over the phone. By the way, we can take this much, much further. The state can come down on you, Dara. The state can come down on you, on Tony West. So take care of this. So I'm sure it's in the wording and the phone calls and the letters, but you're absolutely right. Kenneth says, thanks, Rick. I think I'm done driving. I've been fired 2 times for drunk passengers saying I'm drunk. Just celebrated 31 years sobriety. They always put me back on the platform. 16,000 trips, 5-star, or 5 years. Kenneth, you know what you deserve is your own limo company. You should be running your own show where you're the boss. I'm not joking. So defendants' unfair and unlawful treatment of their drivers also confers an unfair advantage on defendants over their law-abiding competitors and would-be competitors. So there are competitors out there that are playing by the book, playing by the law, but they have no chance. They have no chance going up against people that are playing the dirty game, right? Because the people that are playing the dirty game are saving so much money and can really out-muscle and push competitors out of the market. Defendants utilize the illegitimate savings, I just said it. Defendants utilize the illegitimate savings they gain from depriving their drivers of the full compensation and benefits they earn as employees to offer their ride-hailing services at an artificially low cost, disseminating competitors and generating billions of dollars in private investor wealth off the backs of vulnerable drivers. Brilliantly, brilliantly, brilliantly said. Amen. Thank you, Javier Becerra. Defendants utilize the illegitimate savings they gain from depriving their drivers of the full compensation and benefits they earn as employees to offer their ride-hailing services at an artificially low cost, decimating competitors and generating billions of dollars in private investor wealth off the backs of vulnerable drivers. I can relate to that. Off the backs of vulnerable drivers. Let that sink in. Defendants' misclassification of their drivers allows both companies to unlawfully reduce a substantial portion of the labor and vehicle fleet costs they would otherwise incur if they lawfully classified and compensated their drivers as employees, including reimbursing drivers for their vehicle maintenance and fuel expenses. Because driver compensation, along with vehicle maintenance and fuel expenses, generally constitutes the lion's share of operating costs for a car service, defendants' illicit savings allows them to gain an outsized competitive advantage over other transportation providers. This is why companies like the Blue Shuttle or all these shuttle services around LAX, they're folding, they're dying because of this practice, right? Because of this practice. Defendants' misclassification scheme unlawfully shifts the substantial labor and vehicle costs of running a transportation service from well-resourced defendants onto their under-resourced drivers, placing law-abiding competitors who bear those costs themselves at a substantial competitive disadvantage. That is why the case Sidecar versus Uber and Lyft can proceed, based exactly on that law. You know, that Sidecar sued Uber and Lyft, and the courts allowed that lawsuit to go ahead. In addition to avoiding paying drivers for the full compensation and reimbursements they earn as employees under state and local wage and hour laws, defendants also avoid paying their share of state and local payroll taxes and workers' compensation insurance premiums. On information and belief, the illicit cost savings defendants have reaped as a result of avoiding employer contributions to state and local unemployment and social insurance programs totals well into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Defendants' denial to drivers of the full compensation and benefits they are guaranteed under law as employees pushes the total amount of defendants' illicit cost savings over their law-abiding competitors or would-be competitors who cannot enter the market even higher. I'm on to my fourth water. One live stream. But I got to put this, I have, for my sakes, for your sakes, for all gig workers' sakes, I got to put this out there. I got to put this language out there because I am a firm believer, if I put this frequency out in the universe, calling these points out, remember, these are city attorneys and attorney generals fighting for us, right? They're paid by us, by the way. They're paid by us. They work for us, right? By putting this out there, I believe the universe can run with it, right? Let the chips fall where they fall. Genuine says, take a potty break. I'm determined to get through this document. We're nearly there. So, this is the part I love. This is the part where Torsten gets excited, right? When I take a lawsuit and I'm, what is my first cause of action against you, the defendant, right? Could be Uber, could be Lyft, could be in real estate, could be in business. What is my first cause of action? Here they say injunctive relief, restitution, and penalties for violations of business and professions code 17200 against all defendants. So you would have to look at the California violations of business and professions code 17200, read it, right? Obviously, this is how they're building their first cause around this code section, right? Usually very interesting reading. This, I guarantee you, if you would look at the class action attorneys, whether they're in California, Nevada, wherever they are, if you look at their argument, if you look at the document that you are signing, they usually give you a little bit of a summary of what actions they are bringing against the company. I will bet you anything, you will see this number, 17,200. So class action attorneys will build their case around this law. The people re-allege and incorporate by reference each allegation contained in the above paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. That's a standardized sentence that you introduce at every cause of action. The people re-allege and incorporate by reference each allegation contained in the paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. Defendants have engaged and continue to engage in acts or practices that are unlawful, unfair, or fraudulent, and which constitute unfair competition within the meaning of Section 17200 of the Business and Professions Code. These acts or practices include, but are not limited to, the following: failing to classify drivers as employees as required by Labor Code Section 2753, failing to pay drivers at least the California minimum wage for all the time worked as required by Labor Code Sections 1182, 12, 1182, 13, 1194, 1197. I'm not going to read all of those out, right? But currently $13 per hour for employers with 26 or more employees, and the California Minimum Wage Order MW 2019. Failing to pay drivers who work in San Francisco at least the San Francisco minimum wage, currently $15.59 per hour. Failing to pay drivers who worked in Los Angeles the minimum wage ordinance, which is currently $14.25 per hour. So if I'm out there doing a 10-hour shift in Los Angeles, let's do some easy math, times $14.25, the minimum I should be earning is 140 plus another $142.50 plus all the other, right? 2 hours overtime, because if I work 10 hours, that's 2 hours over the average 8 hours. Should I get two over hours, which is, so you get 8 times $14.25 plus 2 hours paid at 1.5, or 2 times 14.25 plus. See how it adds up? Should easily be paid out $200 for a 10-hour shift. If I'm getting $120 or $140, I'm losing money, according to this formula. Failing to pay drivers who work in San Diego for the sick leave, blah, 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 all of that. And then the average minimum wage ordinance, San Diego, $13 per hour. So 13 in San Diego, $14.25 in Los Angeles, $15.59 an hour in San Francisco. That's just the minimum wage. Failing to pay drivers the appropriate premium for overtime hours worked as required by Labor Code section blah, 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 blah. Failing to provide meals and pay meal periods, blah, 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 blah. Failing to authorize permit and pay for rest periods and rest periods premiums as required by labor law, blah, blah, blah. Failing to provide drivers with itemized written statements. Failing to provide paid sick leave under labor law section 246. Failing to provide sick leave to drivers who worked in San Francisco. Failing Los Angeles. Failing to pay sick leave in San Diego. Failing to make healthcare expenditures on behalf of drivers who worked in San Francisco, on behalf of Los Angeles. Failing to pay employment training fund taxes for drivers as required by unemployment insurance code. Failing to withhold to remit state disability insurance taxes. Failing to withhold and remit income taxes for drivers as required by unemployment insurance code section 1320 and 13021. Failing to provide workers' compensation for drivers as required by Labor Code section 3700. And failing to provide other rights and benefits to drivers under Labor Code IWC Wage Order 9-2001 and other local employee protection laws. Each defendant misclassification of its drivers as independent contractors and accompanying failure to comply with numerous provisions of the California Labor Code, blah, 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 all laid out in paragraph 17200. There it is. Second cause of action, injunctive relief for violations of AB5 Labor Code, paragraph 2750.3 against all defendants. They go through all of that because they failed, because they misclassified them. Prayer for relief. We're almost at the bottom. Wherefore the people pray for the following relief. This is the prayer for relief. God, do I love this part. This judge, I'm praying for relief. I'm praying for relief. Pay me. Award me, pay me, award me, pay me. Pursuant to business and profession codes 17203, that each defendant, their successors, agents, representative, employees, and all persons who act in concert with each defendant. So this is where this is the part where they go after the successors, the agents, the investors, the representatives, the employees. They sue them all. Everyone's on the hook. And all persons who act in concert with each defendant be permanently enjoined from engaging in unfair competition as defined in Business and Professions Codes 17200, including but not limited to the acts and practices alleged in this complaint, pursuant to Business Code, Profession Codes 17203, that the court enter all judgments as may be necessary to restore any person in interest, any money or property may have been acquired by violations of business profession codes, blah, 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 blah. Now, I want to show you something. When you have the agreement with Potter Handy, all of the points that they are suing for, and I can't disclose this document, but all the codes are laid out right in the beginning. Right, you can go over that. Pursuant to Business Code, Professions Code, Section 7. So these are all the laws that you can quote if you as an individual went after them. You're on the money on every single one of them. They have done the work for you. You could literally, ladies and gentlemen, you could literally cut and paste this entire frickin' paragraph here, right? You could cut and paste and you could throw that in your document. Judge, pay me. Have them pay me. Get them to pay me because of these laws, right? Here what they say is pursuant to Business and Professions Code. This is where they slap Dara and them down, that each defendant be assessed a civil penalty. You can't, as an individual, assess a civil penalty against them. The state can. This is what the Attorney General. So this one here would definitely not apply to you, right? They say in an amount of $2,500 for each violation. That's for each person they violated, right? And then another $2,500 for each violation of the UCL perpetrated against a senior citizen or disabled person as proven at trial. Blah, blah, blah. That the people recover their costs of the suit, so Uber and Lyft pay for the lawsuit, and such other and further relief that the court deems appropriate. And when they say such other and further relief, that's usually punitive damages. If the judge wants to make an example and slap additional costs on them, he can. Additional damages. Here's all these guys, and signed by the state. That's it. We covered the entire document. Ladies and gentlemen, I covered 27 pages with you today. I covered 27 pages in 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm going to give myself a little round of applause, right? Because that really took it out me. Tired, exhausted, thirsty. Not every day that I rattle off 27 pages. And don't forget to like, right? If there's something you learned today, if there's something you can take away from this live feed today, give me a like, please. I would appreciate it. And again, when law firms represent you in the class actions, they cover all of this verbiage. So if you want to see how they go out there and battle, it's all in here. And if any one of you in this feed or in the other feed, if any one of you want to get a free copy of it, I'm sure many people have emailed me already. I will now be coming to the end of this live feed. I appreciate you all. You've been awesome. You guys have shared tremendous good stuff, just good information and suggestions in this feed. I've been keeping one eye on the paperwork, one eye on the laws which represent us, and one eye on the room. I've tried to not ignore anyone. I've been reading this eye, right? So I've definitely have not been ignoring you wherever I can. I've read out your messages, try to include you in the conversation. Why? Because this applies to us. This applies to Robin. This applies to Kenneth. This applies to Mike. This applies to Kenneth. This applies to Slidehammer. This applies to It's Moose. This applies to Scott. We are all trading US stocks and all of the other 45 people I haven't mentioned who are in this feed right now. This applies to us. That we have these guys going out there fighting for us. They've put on the gloves and they're using the legal verbiage, fighting for us, right? If you really have taken the time, I've read this document 3 or 4 times, you truly understand how Javier Becerra and his crew, it's a big group of attorneys and paralegals, a lot of people get credit on this one, how they really have dialed in to the driver, how they have really tried to understand the driver, and they must have interviewed a lot of drivers and seen a lot of paperwork and also subpoenaed and taken a lot of paperwork to come up with this document, right? It's powerful stuff, my friends. So how do you join a class action lawsuit if you're from Florida? I believe there's a non-profit, I hope I got it right. I think it is NELA.org. If you email me, I'll send you the correct link. These are employment lawyers, employment class action attorneys for every state. You can select your state and then class action attorneys, and they'll all show up, and you can email them and you can say, hey, do you guys have any ongoing class action lawsuits against Uber or Lyft that I can join for misclassification? It's a lot of money, folks. I think my misclassification lawsuit is around $700,000, right? And then probably another $700,000 for referrals not paid out. I mean, I'm suing these low over $1 million. You know, I can't talk about the exact figure, but it's over $1 million in 3 lawsuits that I filed, right? And I have no problem giving that 40% to the attorneys who are doing all the work, who are doing all of this, right? I'm sitting back and saying, fight them, battle them, bring me the money, and keep your portion, right? So you can adopt this language and file in pro per, which I advise you wouldn't do. If you're going in pro per in small claims court, I have a 14 out of 14 record. 14 small claims suits, 14 victories. Business related. Haven't lost one where I represented myself. But if you're going into superior court, right here, superior court, I advise you, unless you're a little bit of a veteran or you think I think I'm a veteran, right? I think I know a lot. I definitely am not an attorney. I didn't study the law, but I do know a lot through spending hours and hours and years in the law library, writing my papers, and you learn. You just naturally learn this stuff, right? Maybe then you could represent yourself in pro per in superior court, but I would highly suggest you either get yourself an attorney that you pay per hour, or even better, you don't have any out-of-pocket expenses and you join a class action. I would rather take 60% of something, you know, than 0 of nothing. You can, but you have to look at your state. Whatever state you're in, you have to look at, like in California, the maximum, I can sue Uber or Lyft individually. I can sue Uber for $10,000 and I can sue Lyft for $10,000, right? In small claims court in California. But in superior court, there's no end. And then you might even try to get them into superior court, but you find, oh my God, you signed all those documents and you can't. You have to go to arbitration, which is not a bad thing. In arbitration, you're still fighting the same law. You're just getting a far quicker verdict. You know, there's no trials and all this bullshit. It's quick. And that's why class action attorneys force this. Multiple drivers, multiple damages, boom, straight into arbitration court. I read Nevada is not paying unemployment for gig workers. I think that's bullshit, and attorneys will jump on that. I mean, has anyone in Nevada collected? Philman says, question, how is Uber and Lyft still alive with all the lawsuits? Well, every second. Correct, Philman, every second. The story of Uber is suit after suit after suit, and the media loves it. The media reports on every single one of them. It's because, again, how do they get to all of these lawsuits, right? What they are known for, they're masters of going into areas, going into cities, countries, breaking the law, not abiding by current laws, twisting the laws, manipulating the laws, being sued, buying time, pushing a case out, long, try to get as much time. If they lose, they then appeal. So many countries and cities have been in court with Uber and Lyft for years. If you're going to small claims court, you file, you serve them, and generally speaking, you get a hearing within 2 months. So you get a pretty quick resolution. And by the way, if you are in California, I highly suggest you go with these guys. They're brilliant. And do please tell them that Rideshare Professor sent you. They know me well. They know me very well. We speak on the phone once or twice a week. Right? They know me by name. They know me by my channel. And they'll say, yep, we know him. And they'll work with you quickly. So, and Abstract Echo says, it's Moose, it's best that you opted out of the arbitration clause, which is correct. Uber loves forcing you into arbitration. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you. You guys have, yes, I'm opted out of arbitration clause. That's correct. Yes, I have. I've made many videos, as you know, over the years, showing you each time something occurred. I was always the first one to jump in and say, here's a new thing, opt out. This is how you opt out. Here's a new thing, opt out. This is how you opt out, right? So I've been preaching this for years, my friends, since my channel started. Gus on the Rock, did you sign a retainer with Potter Handy? Then you call them up. Call them up. Very unlike Potter Handy not to immediately follow up with you. If you say, hey, I signed the retainer, if you've signed it, you're good. Then it's moving along, right? If it's signed, sealed, and delivered, it's moving along. If there's any specific thing you need, I would email or call them. Right? But if you've already signed it, if you've already received the documents and you've signed it, now it takes its course. I don't know, Brooke. I don't know. I don't want to even, I don't want to offend anyone in Florida. I don't want to get into politics, but certain systems, certain states work very different to other states. I don't know whether it's politically motivated, whatever the case is, or, I'm just saying too many Democratic and Republican, and I say both, too many Democratic and Republican senators and congressmen or House representatives work for corporations because that's where they get their donations. They always have their back. They don't necessarily have the back of the citizens, of the people of the United States, the people that are actually paying their salaries. But their salary is a pittance. It's a drop in the ocean what we are paying these guys compared to the money that they collect from the corporations, right? And number one on my target list, and I'll say it out loud, is Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell does not work for citizens of the United States. He is the guy who takes the highest donations from companies. Over $30 million so far. He does not work for you or for me. He works for the corporations. He works for big pharmaceutical companies. He does not work for the little guy, right? And that guy needs to go. That's the only political statement I'm going to make tonight, is that Mitch McConnell is the worst of the worst. He has collected more money from corporate America than any other senator or House representative or congressman. And he needs to go. Right? Because these people work for us. We pay their salaries. Right? They shouldn't be working for corporate America, who's making big donations. Mitch McConnell recently backed a bill, and I'm not going to go into politics, but he got $50,000 in donations from multiple pharmaceutical companies to protect them, not to protect the senior or the little guy, right? So you always got to ask yourself, whose best interest have you in mind, Mr. Politician or Mrs. Politician? Ours, the people, or the corporations? That's why these big firms pay an army. Google has 30 full-time lobbyists, an army of lobbyists that wines and dines Republicans and Democrats alike in Washington, D.C., right? You do this for us, we do this for you. You do this for us, we'll do this for you. That's how politics work. The little guy needs to be taken care of here. And again, we're not going into politics. I just mentioned one person that I want to see out of politics. I'm not getting into the whole Democratic and Republican arena. I'm not. I'm just saying, in the United States, I do know that both sides, Democrats and Republicans, the majority of these people, senators and House representatives, work for corporations, not for us. That's all I have to say. Joey Valenzuela, yeah, I would definitely email them or call them and say, hey, I signed it. Anyway, let me know. And I don't want to get into politics, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to create feuds here. I want to concentrate on what's important. I want to concentrate on the driver. That's us. And I want to get the best deal for us. That's my mission, right? And I will fight relentlessly, to the point that I will call over and over and over again to get in front of Javier Becerra, which I will, mark my words. So I'm not going to get involved in politics here. Let's stick to the facts, and the facts are that we are underpaid. We should be paid more. And whether you want to become an employee, not an employee, where you want to stay an independent contractor or think you are an independent contractor, I just say, let's create a whole new set of gig worker laws where we have the flexibility to choose with whom we work, when we want to work, and that we come out and get better conditions, better money, better pay, whether it's per mile, per minute, sick leave. All of these things have to be in there, and we have to have a voice at the table. We cannot be silenced. We cannot always be told to shut up, right? All right, my friends. Does everyone think that they got something out of this today? I got a lot out of it today. I'm on 87. If we can maybe squeeze another 3, por favor. 3, por favor. 3 bitte. 3, s'il vous plaît. Don't forget to like plus subscribe. Let me get the full value out of this t-shirt today. I need 3 more. 3, por favor. Hammer time. And we got 87 in the house. 87. Anybody got 88? Anybody in the house? We're going to 88. Anybody bidders on the 88? Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any bidder on the 88? Anybody want to say? We have 88. Thank you very much to the gentleman in the front there. Thank you very, very much for the bid for the 88. We are on 88. Anybody want to 89? 89. Anybody on the 89 in the house? And can we go to, we are currently on 88. Lady at the back, are you willing to go on 89? Anybody want to go to 89? We're on 88. We're stuck on 88. All right, we have a gentleman in the front there with a bid of 88. 88 for the first, and we have another bid for 89. 89, 89. We got another bid for 89. Can we get to 90? Can we get? We dropped one. Somebody just went to the restroom. Somebody bailed out. And we are back on 88. Can we get back to 89? Back to 89. Will that person who gave 89 please give back the one? So we got an 89. Anybody for the bid for 89? Anybody for the bid for 89? We're currently stuck on 88. We got 88 for the first. 88 for the second. People are taking away. Whoever just took away, unsubscribe and leave. Sorry. If I've been sitting here for 3 hours busting my ass, bringing you value, and you're taking the like away, go fuck yourself and unsubscribe right now. Who is that? I'm sitting here for 3 hours busting my ass for the two people that take away the like. Shame on you. I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for myself, okay? So just so that we're on the same page. Those two people, I ask you kindly, don't come back into my feed. That's who I am. I take no prisoners, right? Because I'm here putting in 3 hours of my time. Nobody's paying me for this. I'm calling these guys out. I'm giving you the law. I'm sending out free emails after this. And two people had the audacity to take the likes away. I don't need you. I do not want you. You know who you are. Unsubscribe and do not come back to the next live feed. Period. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The highest bidder tonight is on 88. Who is number 88? 89 and 90 retracted and will not be here anymore. So I wish you a fantastic night. Stay safe out there, and do whatever you need. Put on your masks, use your sprays, use your disinfectants. We shut out 2 trolls today. The one was a person called Nameless, and I think there was another. Scott Tucker came in with the highest bid on 88. Congratulations, you take the highest bid. But I'm also glad that I've identified, because they know who they are. They're too scared to say their name. They're too shy to say, hey, they retracted the like. But energetically, they're not welcome in my house anymore, right? So the people that are flushed, cannot like. They block. They're out, right? When I flush them, they're off. They unsubscribe. They cannot even hit the like button anymore. But Mark Rowden says it's squirrel time. Let's go out to get the money. Use these 27 pages to your advantage. Use them for your fighting power. Again, right now, after this feed, I'm going to go to my email. I'm sure there's a ton of emails there that are waiting for this document. I will put you in that email, and I will probably spend the next 10, 15, 20 minutes sending out that copy that I promised. Thank you for pushing me up to 90. Muchas gracias. Vielen Dank. Merci. S'il vous plaît. Somebody's playing a game with me here. I'm on 90 and they pull it away. To that person. Boom. Not needed. That's how I roll, guys. That's how I roll. Just so that you know. If you want to play games, I got to meet them face to face. I don't have time for that monkey business. I'm okay. I'm happy and content on 89. Would I have been happy with 90? Absolutely. Because I know that 90 gives us better ratings in the algorithms. Right? 90 gives us better ratings in the algorithms. So the higher we can push a video. That's what Dustin fights for. That's what all YouTubers fight for, is obviously their ratings, their likes, because we elevate the story or the issue, right? Remember yesterday there was that lady who fired 3,500 people in a 3-minute Zoom call, right? I called this woman out. I didn't use nice language. I didn't, right? I went after that woman. I also said at the same time that word that I used does not apply to the subscribers or the females or the women in our house. It was specifically for her. Her name was Ruffin the Muffin, Ruffin Chevalier. I called her a specific name, and that video got a lot of views. It got a lot of views, ladies and gentlemen. So I know that the Uber attorneys that know me and said that they're following my channel, I know they watched the Ruffin the Muffin video. I know that Ruffin the Muffin, because if you go in, do yourself a favor after this feed, go in and at YouTube and put in her name, Ruffin Chevalier. See who the #1 video is that shows up on YouTube. It's my video, right? So you guys know, what is her name? Ruffin? What was her last name? Go do yourself a favor, do an exercise afterwards. Ruffin Chevalier. I think that's how you spell her name. You type that name, after we end the feed, type that name, Ruffin Chevalier, that woman who had the cheek to put on those fake tears, that fake cry, and fire 3,500 people in 180 seconds. Shame on her. Despicable. And you put her name, her trashy name, into the YouTube channel, you'll see I work getting that thing there to that position, so we get under their skin, so we call their people, so we call them out. I pad it with the right keywords, with the right hashtags, and I get the video to the top, right? That's how you get the traffic. It's Moose, you and I are good always, my friend. You don't have to, no sorries needed from my hardcore subscribers. I know who you are. I know who the warriors are, right? But there's some people that are here and there hiding in the dark, and the Russian trolls, as Abstract Echo calls them, and they like to play games. But I see this and I take it very personal. The reason why I take it very personal is because I'm here fighting for you and I, right? I'm fighting alongside these people, trying to get them, like the Javier Becerras of the world and all those other, I've got all the emails, right? I got them from the Deputy Attorney General. I write them a letter and I say, listen, look at my channel, look at who I am, look at my following, right? I'm in the top 3 worldwide for rideshare. I represent the people, I speak for the people. Please, if you can, if you need any people, especially California drivers, if you want opinions and voices from other states, other cities, tell me. I will get you what you need, right? I want to help you make this product better, right? And push for better pay. And you know, that takes a lot ladies and gentlemen, it takes a lot out of you. You've got to be cut out for this shit. You got to be willing, if you want to throw the jabs, the punches, and the uppercuts, you got to be willing to get in the ring and fight tirelessly. Ask Edward, ask Alliance at Drivers Unite, right? Ask him what it takes. He gets out there hours and hours in the sun. He's got his banners up. He's got his bullhorn. He's in 150% for you, like I am. And it takes a lot. You either cut out for the game or you're not cut out for the game. You've got it or you don't have it. I can tell you I have it, and I'm willing to fight the fight, right? I've done it before. I'll do it again. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you, Alliance Drivers Unite. Subscribe to him. He is an amazing, amazing gentleman who has your back. And every single one of you right now in this feed and the other feed, thank you. I appreciate you. And to the 1 or 2 who played around with my likes, I'll see you in the afterlife. Have a great day. Everyone, enjoy. Good night. Two viewers in that. Thank you so much for being in the Rideshare Driving channel. I appreciate you.